So in today's video, I will be sharing with you my favorite art supplies that I've been using in 2024. I will break this down in a few different categories, so we'll have sketchbooks and papers, paints and accessories, and without further ado, let's just get straight into it. Personally, this year I've been experimenting with quite a few different supplies and I've been doing a lot more mixed media than I used to. And for sure I have found some of my favorite materials which I can't imagine not using on a daily basis. Okay, so first I want to start with sketchbooks, and I am starting with the Art Creation Royal Talent sketchbooks. I first of all started with this really big one. It's an A4 size. And what I like about the Royal Talents is that you can use a lot of materials on it. I know it's not intended for wet mediums, but I have used watercolors on it. I used pencils, liners. It's really nice to be able to find such an affordable sketchbook, because this is the number one thing about this. It's quite a cheap sketchbook and it does take gouache and watercolors. This is one of my favorite pages I've done on this sketchbook, and I did use a combination of watercolor, gouache on the background and some colored pencils on top. I even experimented with markers. It does bleed through, of course, because the thickness of the paper is only 140, but I do love using it as a mixed media sketchbook where you just layer things on top of each other and create beautiful spreads like this one. And you can tell how much I love this sketchbook because I have stashed up on it. I was in HomeSense the other day and they had loads of them for really cheap. I mean, the small one, you can see it was $2.99. So if you have a local HomeSense/TK Maxx, definitely have a look. And another really nice thing about it is the different colors. There is a color there for everyone. I know a lot of people like the really small versions of this sketchbook. I do enjoy it, but I find it a bit too small for my liking. It does tend to be a bit limiting sometimes to use such a small size. But again, this comes more to personal preference. Now, continuing with the sketchbooks, I really want to talk about the Hahnemühle sketchbooks. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing this right. These are more for watercolor and wetter mediums. The paper is thicker. It does take watercolors really nicely, and this has become one of my favorite sketchbooks because the paper and the sketchbook itself are not on the really expensive side, so it doesn't make me afraid of using this sketchbook. Another sketchbook I want to talk about, this is the Moleskine Art Collection sketchbook. It's a drawing sketchbook again. I think it is comparable to the Royal Talents. It's on the more pricier side, but it is intended for drawing. This is more of like a daily drawing sketchbook where I just wanted to draw something almost every day and using it pretty much mostly for drawing type of materials. The paper is actually quite nice and thick, and I do think it can handle a bit of wet medium. I still prefer colored pencils on the Royal Talents than the Moleskine. But here I was testing out the other day some watercolors on it with just some really light washes, and it's actually hasn't taken it too badly. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is toned paper. I've been really loving using toned paper. It gives it a slightly new dimension to your drawings, and what I've been using has been the Strathmore Toned Tan Mixed Media and the Hahnemühle Cappuccino Pad. This is one of the drawings I've done on the Honeyville sketch pad, and it's quite nice because you have the mid-tone there, so then you just have to look at bringing the highlights and the darks into your drawing. I started using this paper mostly when I was doing my Inktober challenge, and the reason I really liked it for Inktober is that I think it gives a different dimension to your inks. Now, my number one favorite art supply is the Faber-Castell Polychromos colored pencils. I've been loving these pencils and I've been using them a lot this year. I went through a phase where I just literally been drawing just portraits using these pencils, and they layered out so nicely. They're so buttery, and I just haven't used a pencil that feels as nice as the Polychromos. So as you can see, I use these quite a lot, and I had to replace some of them because I literally use them until they get to this stage where you start needing a pencil extender to use them. And as I mentioned, also pencils extenders are a game changer. The most annoying thing I find when your pencils start getting short is having to sharpen them. It becomes impossible once they get to this stage. Now, I do like to work with a slightly warmer color palette, so there is a lot of browns and reds here. These are not all the original colors that come in this set. Another thing I do quite like about the Polychromos is that you can find them individually. You don't have to buy a set because the sets are quite expensive, and this way, you know, you don't have to make a £200 purchase straight away. You can buy a couple of pencils now, a couple of pencils tomorrow, and that way you can grow your own collection and also pick your favorite shades. Okay, now let's talk about watercolors. So my favorite brand is actually the Winsor & Newton Cotman watercolors. This is one of my favorite palettes because it's so small and compact, and you can take it traveling with you. It has all of the basic colors and it's very, very affordable. I've also recently picked up the bigger version. It's brand new, so I haven't opened any of the colors, but I did want to have something that gives me more variety in terms of the colors and that has more mixing space. I do quite like this one as well because you can store up a few brushes in it, so it's all quite compact. You only need some water, you have all of your colors, your palette, and your brushes that can go in this. I do really like using tubes as well. And this is a collection of my favorite colors, which I have swatched up on one of these really portable palettes as well. I literally just done this today. I haven't used this outdoors, but it's basically all of the colors I use a lot, and I can't yet recommend this palette, but it's quite nice and compact. It comes with a clip, and then it just closes down with magnets. In my opinion, there is a few must-have colors when it comes to watercolors, and I really like the combination between burnt sienna, Payne's grey, and maybe an indigo. But all of these here are colors that I really like to use. Besides the Cotman watercolors, I have a few of the Rosa Gallery watercolors. I'm really enjoying these. They are a Ukrainian brand, and they are not much more expensive than the Winsor & Newton, and the options for the colors these come in are really nice. I'm enjoying using this in my palette, especially this blue, which I can't actually pronounce the name of it, but it's a stunning color. Next, we have the Daler-Rowney System Acrylic Ink. These are versatile and especially beautiful for mixed media artworks. And the way I like to use them is kind of like a watercolor. So I mix them with a lot of water and they just blend together so beautifully. I was using these a lot during Inktober just to have a bit of a splash of color. And when they dry, they sometimes dry so beautifully. For example, this moon here, I haven't manipulated it anyway. I literally just did wet the paper and I dropped it in and it created different shades for the moon. And they have a nice also glow to them once they are dry. And one of the last paint materials, I want to talk about the Royal Talents designer gouache. I used their art creation range before, which these are really nice and affordable as well. Some of them are not the most opaque, but they're really good if you want to start out with gouache. But there is something about their designer gouache. I picked these ones up from Lisbon and they were quite affordable in the particular shop I went to. And I like to use them kind of as a background for my work sometimes. In here as well, I do have my favorite colors that I like to use in my work. Next I want to talk about a medium more than a material, which is the fountain pen. I've been really enjoying using this as a sketching medium and I've been having a lot of fun trying to use different colored inks as well to sketch with. This particular fountain pen, it's actually a fancy one. I had no idea. It was given to me by my partner's mom and then I went on eBay and I realized it's quite expensive, but I do have just random fountain pens as well. This is the pen I sketch most of my work in my Moleskine sketchbook and I just have a lot of fun using fountain pens with ink as a medium. Now continuing with pens, I do really like the Faber-Castell pens as graphite pencils. This is a nice set as it comes with pencils of different variety from 8 to 8B. A lot of these are missing because I use them regularly, so there's no point keeping them in the tin. I definitely feel like Faber-Castell knows how to do their pencils and they're very good at that. And the next one is a newer purchase that I tried it for the first time just a few months ago. This is a Blackwing soft pencil. I kept seeing it around. A lot of the people use the matte version, which I'm very interested in picking it up. But it's quite luxurious and I don't know, there's something about it. I really enjoyed using it. This graphite drawing here is made only using this pencil. Next I'm going to talk just very briefly about brushes because I'm actually not too fussed about the brand of brush I used. It's more about what type of brush it is. This is becoming one of my favorites to use in watercolors. It's really nice to give certain effects with it and drag paint away. This isn't branded. It's a 2-inch really cheap brush. I think when I picked it up it was 50 cents. But you want something that's a bit coarse, not too soft, and it's one of my favorites at the moment. I also really like these Mont Marte brushes. This is from the detailed brush set and I really like the grip on this. There is just something so nice about holding them and using them. They look really nice as well with the rose gold and the white handle. Other than that, this is another one that I'm enjoying because you can make some beautiful grass textures with it. This was from a cheap Simply Daleroni set, so if you ever see it around, it's worth picking it up just for this brush. And another essential, especially when it comes to watercolors, pick up one of these where you can just put water in it, and that way you don't even have to carry a water bottle or a water container when you are on the go. Doesn't matter which brand, any of them would do. Pick them up in sets though, because they have different brush tips. So for example, I have a square one and a round one, and then I've just been using different Daler Ronnie brushes. I do really like them. They're not too expensive. You can pick them up individually, you can pick them up in sets, and I think actually the sets turn out to be cheaper most of the times. You get a free brush than when you pick them up individually. I do tend to use either their watercolor range or their acrylic range, depending what I want to paint. Then I want to mention these markers from String Green, I think it's called. They do tend to have art materials which are actually very good quality for how affordable they are. I choose to include these two ones because I'm really liking the colors. I do have some Winsor and Nusa Pro markers as well, but I never really tend to gravitate towards them. But these two colors are just so nice, and they just make for really good backgrounds. And as we are talking about markers, I do like highlighters as well to use in my work, and of course liners. I do use a lot of liners, and I like to use the Staedtler ones because they come in sets with different sizes. So you can get some that are really thin and some that are quite thick. And lastly, as I spoke about String Green, I do have a few accessories from it. I do really like this paint palette. I still think it's in the stores at the moment. It's just a ceramic paint palette that looks like a strawberry. I'm not too fussed about what type of palette I use. I mean, I used to just use plates, just ceramic plates like this, but it's quite nice having an actual palette to use with my watercolors. And then I also picked up a water jug. I think it was from the same collection because they're both strawberries. And I also want to mention their masking liquid. I used to use this Daler Ronnie one, but it dries so quickly. Like by the time I put it down, it's dry, so I can't spread it around. And also this has a really fine tip which I can get into the details with. It does dry a bit slower, so you have to really plan in advance, and it dries very thinly, so again it's a bit difficult to rub it off, but it just makes up for the fact that I can really manipulate it before it dries, so I can cover up really thin areas, and again I can use this nib. And yeah, these are all of my favorite materials that I've used this year. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm very curious to know what are your favorite art supplies and if there are any art supplies out there that you would like me to try. And I hope I will see you in my next video. Bye!